So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we'll start by actually talking about gratitude. So what do you think we mean by gratitude?
You're putting me on the spot here. For me, gratitude is appreciating things that you have in life, I guess. Whether it's emotional relationships, physical, whether it's material, whatever, just having thanks for whatever you've got, I guess.
Okay, I like to put people on the spot.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, again, it's very much the same about being grateful for every day for what you have. I think gratitude is a word that has come in recently, and there's a lot of this having gratitude, but I think you're going to explain to us more about this, because the initial thought is, I'm just grateful for life, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful that I've got a friend, or I'm grateful that I woke up in the morning, I'm grateful I've had another day.
Yeah.
But I think it goes beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's deeper.
And how your mind works and your thoughts are. I think it's more to do with that.
And the power it can actually have. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're both right in terms of what gratitude actually is. It is actually just as simple as stopping, thinking, taking account of what is in your life that you are genuinely thankful for. So what do you have that you wouldn't want to be without, and therefore you do appreciate it? And that could be, it could be things, it could be people, it could be relationships, etc. And it could be the smallest thing, it could be the biggest thing. It just depends on what's going on in your life, and therefore what is important to you. So to one person who perhaps has health concerns, has those challenges, actually just kind of saying, I'm thankful I've woken up this morning and I feel good today. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate that I could go for a walk.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody else might take that for granted because they haven't ever had challenges, but for them, they might be grateful for something else.
Yeah. But so it's individual, isn't it? It's very individual. You can't group people and just be flippant about it and say, just be grateful, because you don't know what that person's going through.
Very true.
You don't know their circumstances. And so it's very, very individual, I think.
Yeah.
And human nature is such that we're only grateful for something when either we've come close to losing it, or we never had it and now we do.
Yes.
Something that's been a bit of a constant, or we haven't had to really work for, we tend to overlook. Not on purpose, but it happens.
Yeah.
So gratitude in general is just stopping, thinking about what you have, whatever that might be, and it could be something as simple as, I'm really grateful for actually the weather today. It could just be the sun's out and it's making me feel good. But basically what you have and how that impacts you and how you're grateful for it. So gratitude can be that simple. Now, why is it important? Other than actually, as far as relationships go, it is really important to have gratitude for the strength of the relationship. So there are many benefits generally to the relationships you have, and outward there's a lot of benefits to having gratitude. But let's start from the inside. When you are grateful for something, when you're grateful, not just happy, actually grateful, that feeling that's created, so the chemicals that release, you've got endorphins, so the feel-good hormone that is actually released as well. But when you're grateful for something more connected, like a relationship or another person, it gives you a sense of security and belonging. And that actually releases oxytocin as well. And that hormone is the love hormone. So it makes us feel secure, it makes us feel attached, it makes us feel connected. So it gives you that sense of purpose and grounding as well. Other hormones can be released through this, like for example dopamine as well. So you've got all sorts of positive hormones that are all naturally created inside your body, and what they do is overall they give you a sense of well-being. Okay, starting from the mind. So a sense of well-being, whether that's through feeling secure, feeling loved, feeling relaxed, all these hormones are released. that has an effect then on your body as well. So it started with the mind, with a simple thought of how you're grateful for something. That's turned into hormones, that's impacting your body and actually giving you a general feel-good factor. To the point where it can actually help your health in a positive way.
Yeah.
So you've now impacted your brain, your mind, therefore your feelings, because first you have thoughts, those thoughts turn into feelings, those feelings release chemicals in your body, and you're also positively impacting your body itself. And then you've got all the outward benefits of being grateful. Now that's just a very simple way, a very, very simple basic explanation of why being grateful is such a massive benefit, an actual physical benefit to yourself. And then you've got the other kind of mindful approaches and the fluffy things, if you want, which we'll talk about on another episode. So we're agreed that being grateful is a good thing.
Oh God, yes.
Oh yes.
Okay. So how can you do it? As Nish said, absolutely, it's a very, very personal thing. Something that you're grateful for, somebody else may not see because it's personal to you. But what we can do is discuss some techniques that you can use if you're not used to doing this as a practice. And if you don't, you might be one of those people who thinks, oh, I don't know, it's all a bit, I don't really want to do that stuff. And, I don't get that and I don't get all the journaling. It's okay. There's lots of different ways you can do it. So we're going to talk about a few techniques that you can use to start to get into a gratitude, you don't have to call it gratitude practice, you can just say starting to be more aware of the things in your life that you're grateful for. So I'm gonna list a couple of things down, and then I'm gonna ask both of you if you do anything around this or how you would do it as well. So one of the things that you can do if you do like writing or journaling, or you do like to think of it as a practice, what you can actually do is on a daily basis, and really we should do this daily because when we're trying to train for something it's about doing it regularly. Again, you'll notice I keep saying you slow down or you stop first.
Because you have to, it's a conscious decision, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And being aware.
Yeah.
Aware of it.
Exactly. It's actually taking account, so stopping for a moment and thinking, so that's very important. But you can actually write down, and you can start it doesn't have to be to do with your whole life. It can be very small in that day. What happened to you that day that made you feel good, and be grateful for that. So you may not know if you say, what am I grateful for? I don't know what I'm grateful for. But if you start by, what happened to me today that made me feel good, made me smile, put me in a good mood, however you want to word it, great, that's something you're grateful for. And it can be as simple as, do you know what? The bus arrived just as I got to the bus stop.
Yeah.
And that put a real smile on my
I
face.
didn't miss the train.
It could be
another hour.
Could be as simple as that. It could be, I'm really grateful for my caramel macchiato this morning. It was just perfect. But also write down why. Why? What was it about that made you feel good? Why are you grateful for it? Okay. Another way of doing it is, if you struggle with that, you could think, what would happen if you didn't get that? How would you feel about that? And then kind of flip it on its head. That's another way of doing it.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I've actually never, for example, at the end of a day, reflected on it and thought, what was the best thing that happened to me today? I've actually never done that. It's really interesting.
Can I offer you a thought?
Sure.
I bet you sat there at the end of the day and thought, oh God, what do I have to do tomorrow? What hasn't done work today?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Rather than sit there and think, what
went well.
Yeah, what
went well.
It's a case of, oh man, he really annoyed me at work today, or whatever.
What do I have to do with tomorrow?
Yeah, that's
I think
really
it's
interesting.
Human instinct, just go to that
Yeah, you're
away,
right.
isn't
And
it?
that would go reflect back what Debbie was saying earlier on in terms of we are
programmed to look at the negative first. And whereas there's nothing wrong with looking at that for improvement, it's really, really important to balance it and have a look at what worked well. Otherwise, all that stuff that's working, you don't take notice of, and that's where you get people saying, oh, nothing good ever happens to me. Some bad things are always happening to me. That's not true
and
at
I think
all.
that customer that really annoyed you, I bet you there's a learning from that for you to say, actually, I mean, in school speak, it's, you know, when children work and we say, well, how did it go? What could you do better? What would you do next time? Sort of thing. So I guess you're learning from that experience.
I want you to hold on to that thought, because that comes into our mindset, that comes into our fixed versus growth
Yeah.
mindset. You're absolutely right. I can tell why you're so far up the scale. So that's the one way of learning how to be grateful for things. And what's fantastic about this, and this is where, like, honestly, the benefits never stop, is as you're stopping and reflecting and doing this, you're re-releasing all those feelings. And you're re-experiencing them, and you're re-releasing those hormones, so you actually get to feel good all over again just by reflecting on it and thinking about it. But not just what, why.
Yeah.
What made you feel good? What was positive for you today? Why? And then actually stopping to say or think, I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Another way of doing it, and this is one of my personal favourites, is actually creating a gratitude jar. So
Yes,
while you're in a good frame of mind,
Yeah.
if you don't think this is something you can do on a daily basis, then you can sit down and when you do have time, think about all the things, and this is a bigger scale one, so rather than every day, is the things bigger that are in your life as well. So it could be relationships, it could be your job, it could be your friends, you know, around you, it could be your family, your pet, etc. But all the things that you're grateful for, write them on separate individual little chits, fold them up and pop them into the gratitude jar. But again, what and why? How they make you feel that way.
Sometimes, isn't it? The why is hard.
But the why is the real foundation, the cement. Because that's where you get the real appreciation. Because when you actually have to think and write down the why, it makes the what so much stronger. And then anytime you're having a particularly difficult day, or you're struggling to see the positives or the bigger picture. So sometimes when we've got a challenge that's come along, it makes it very difficult to see the bigger picture because we get so caught up into that particular situation. At that time, actually reaching into the gratitude jar and pulling one out.
Interesting.
Really, really powerful. First of all, it changes your mindset straight away. So you've got all those great feelings again, all those great chemicals being released. It changes your demeanour. It changes how you feel, gives you a bigger, wider perspective on life as well. And actually, you're probably going to be able to problem solve much more effectively with that state of mind. So, gratitude jar. And finally, again, if you want to start really basic, then it can just be one thing on a daily basis. One thing, either in the morning, I would say whenever you need a pick-me-up. So if you're not a morning person, I would tell you to do it in the morning. If you're somebody who is exhausted by the evening, I'd say do it in the evening. Just one thing, but you have to think of the what. What made my day today? What made me smile? What and why? And actually saying, okay, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that this happened to me today. Simple as that. Just start there. So, anything different you do or would do?
I think I do when I'm having it down, I do it in my head. I don't physically write it down. Or I don't do it, put it into a jar, but I do sometimes, no, what I do is if I'm having a down day or things are not going right, I sort of think to myself, actually, and I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but you sometimes think actually there's people or situations worse out there than what I'm going through.
Yeah, very true.
Or as an example, in my head I have of something and I think, no, actually, what am I complaining about? You know, I shouldn't be getting myself into this state because I know that somebody else has got a worse situation out there or has been through something worse. This is nothing, actually. I'm just being, not silly, but I'm working myself up unnecessarily. But I do it all in my head. But I think this whole stopping what and why, I think is quite important.
If I could offer you a thought on that.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think there's any wrong or right because it's your way of doing things. I understand what you're saying because I do that from time to time. It's a type of appreciation
Yes.
because what you're doing is
It is.
being grateful for other people have far less
Yes.
other bigger things I don't.
Yeah.
But what it's also doing is it's not allowing you to feel how you feel because you're kind of saying, I shouldn't feel this way because other people have less things. So it's doing it as a negative impact to you slightly. It's a great thing to do, but it's being negative to yourself. Whereas doing it this way, you could start like that.
Yes.
And then doing it this way, what you're doing is picking yourself up by appreciating what you have. So rather than saying other people have worse things, you should just kind of, come on, you need to get over it or get on with it. It's actually saying,
I'm
actually, then
grateful
what
that-
do I have? Let me be grateful for what I do
Yes.
have. And that will put you in a good mindset.
Yeah, I'm kind of stopping myself. I'm suppressing that feeling, aren't
And you're
I?
allowed to feel how you feel.
Yeah.
Because they may have bigger problems, they may have less, but this is you.
Yeah,
And you don't know what else is going on in their mind. They might have other things they're grateful for that you don't have.
that's true. That's very true.
And it may not be an immediate thing. You're allowed, like Debbie said, you're allowed to feel how you feel. So if, for example, you are feeling down, it doesn't mean that you immediately get yourself out of that situation by using whichever technique you want. You're okay to feel that negativity, that however that you're feeling.
Yes.
I'm going to call it a negative emotion because it's not an elation, but you're okay to feel how you feel. And then after a while, I guess the point here is it's a conscious decision to say
To step out of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. In fact, that is what mindfulness teaches us. And we are going to do an episode on mindfulness. But what you talked about is mindfulness. So it's actually about sitting with the emotion, being aware of the emotion, understanding how you feel, being okay to name it, and then consciously moving on from there as well. So it's absolutely not about masking or saying,
No,
oh,
not
no,
at
I
all.
need to. It's very important. In fact, they actually teach that it's important that children from a very young age experience every emotion.
Oh, they must.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
they
they
actually
must.
understand it so
Yeah.
that they can better understand their emotions growing up and label them and name that emotion, because the better you can name the emotion and you can understand it, you can actually start working your way to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's very important.
So gratitude, how do you feel about that?
I like the idea. So what I would probably be doing differently, that in fact, what I will start doing, which I don't do at all, is perhaps try and understand why something has made me feel positive, for example, about a particular answer, because I don't do that. What I just do is think, for example, okay, well, this made me feel happy. Why? Because it made me feel happy, which I guess is quite superficial, but I guess to be really understanding as to where that comes from, and possibly try and use it to replicate those kinds of those emotions in future, is to actually try and think about the why. And I think that's actually, though, sometimes difficult, particularly for a bloke, because we're emotionally stunted anyway. But yeah.
You're not.
Oh, we are.
You're not. I just don't think, honestly, well, you've touched on it. At the moment, I'm doing my mental health first aid workshop, and we talked about this. It's not that you're more emotionally stunted, although I think it's a choice for some people. I think it's that sometimes you don't feel like you've got a safe forum to talk about this in. And I think sometimes it's about stigma and what's expected.
Yeah, possibly. It could be seen as a sign of weakness with some people, depending
Yeah,
on the environment that you've been brought up in and the environment that you might be in, for example. But I think, going back to the gratitude side of things, it's interesting you talk about having these little jars, and I'm like Nishban, I don't obviously have a jar, but I think I have a metaphorical jar in here, where I have different areas of gratitude. Now, for me, that's work, financial, familial, friendships, and all that sort of stuff as well. So I think it's interesting. We might actually do that with some of the things that you suggested without actually realizing we do it. But to actually show true gratitude and understand it, more importantly, I think, like you say, it's the why. Are you thankful or showing, or are you grateful for having experienced this or feel like this?
Let me ask you a question. If you have something really important, like every day, I'm sure you both have to-do lists, when you've got really important things to do, what's your plan to make sure it happens? What do you do with all the things I'm thinking, right, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this?
I prioritise.
How?
Prioritise by seeing what's the most important thing
Where do you see
Think.
it?
on a piece of paper.
Oh, so you write it down.
I do. I to-do list I do write.
Yeah.
So you
Yes.
write down your to-do list and then you prioritise. What do you do?
I used to not write down. I used to again be a typical like I don't need to do list. I don't need anything
It's
like
all
that.
up here.
It's all up here, and then before you know it, you've got such a bloody long list in your head. You've forgotten about
Yeah.
certain things.
So you've learned to write it down because
Yeah.
it doesn't happen, right? I have a
Correct.
saying. My saying is, if it's not written, it's not real.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's a
how
fair point.
come there's stuff in your head? Why do all these things in your head and not write them down? Can you see the importance?
Yes.
If your to-do list and the jobs you have to do takes precedence where you write it down and you mark it and prioritize it and think about it, yet something like this that is for your well-being, your mindset, your physical well-being, and ultimately your actions, that doesn't warrant you thinking, writing it down?
That's actually a really, really good suggestion, because I saw something on LinkedIn about a month or so ago about a colleague in another store in the Midlands, and they have a board up in their staff room about things that annoy them about their workplace, and as a result, the company directors therefore read it and try and change it. And I kind of understand the thinking behind that, but it would be interesting to flip it the other way around and actually have a mood board about what you do enjoy about work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd have changed that to and what would I like to see it as? What would my utopia be
Yeah.
rather than what I don't like?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So have you
Interesting.
implemented anything in your workplace?
No, not yet, but I might actually, because I do quite like that idea.
Yeah.
I do quite like
If
that
it's
idea.
not written,
positive. Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah.
So when you actually write it down in any shape or form, what you're actually doing is committing to yourself. And as you're writing, because you have to think about the words you're writing, you're thinking about it as well. So you're actually cementing it.
Yeah, one of my son's journals, and obviously that's personal to him, but it'd be quite interesting to understand how it's worked for him. Throughout, and he's been doing it for quite a while. So that would be quite interesting.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, it would.
And that's why I said, even if you're not a big fan of writing, then you can do the jar, because you're just writing single individual ones, putting them in a chip, putting them in the jar. When you read it back, it's like a third person, so it's like yourself telling yourself rather than you thinking it and manifesting it. So writing it is, like I said, if your jobs are that important that you write them down, isn't this? There you go. So that's gratitude. I hope you've taken away something from this.
Yep, definitely.
So you can start small, you can start big, but it'll be really interesting if you start monitoring how you feel. So think about, after you've done whichever practice you're doing, in the following 10, 15, 20 minutes, just think about how you're feeling. Think about how you're feeling, how that's affecting your mood, how your mood is affecting your behaviour and your actions, and therefore your relationships and your situations.
Yeah, very true.
It's a ripple effect, a massive ripple effect. Okay, so that was all about gratitude, and it's really important to start from there, because before you want to go on to achieve more and acquire more, you've got to really appreciate what you do have first. So the second aspect we're going to look at is resilience.